How it works. So the conventional sense of shadow work is one in which it does use the archetypes. The idea is to more or less establish a sense of recognition of the specific parts of yourself that have been repressed, or those shadow archetypes. The second step would be to label those aspects of your suppressed psyche. The third process would be to identify yourself with those shadow archetypes, or those suppressed senses of self. And finally, it would end with you owning those shadow aspects, accepting those lifelong patterns or behaviors that you have been exhibiting, and learning the sense of responsibility you have to change them. The ways in which this process has been updated over time is the way in which you ask yourself, what's been holding me back on that first step? You ask yourself, why am I the way that I am? And upon just unraveling that question, you begin to realize and identify with the parts of yourself that have been self-sabotaging, that have been entirely impeding on your ability to achieve your happiest self, your truest self. And by following those specific behaviors, those specific actions, you then to start piecing together that sort of identity. Once you have a resemblance of yourself in the actions that you've been taking over time, you then invite that aspect of yourself to be heard. You ask yourself, what is it that you are trying to tell me? What have I been trying to tell myself all these years? In the third step, you would begin what they call in psychology an individuation, or a sense of dialogue with those specific archetypes. In the world nowadays, people don't really assign archetypes to themselves unless you're sort of like on a more professional based like therapy, or if you're following someone that just happens to stick close to the book on shadow work and where it came from, including Carl Jung's teachings as well as Sigmund Freud's. The circumstances in which you are able to establish that dialogue is entirely upon the individual, I believe. It does not need to have archetypes, does not need to have specific labels. I think sometimes you can entirely just follow a feeling. The fourth step is one in which you honor and acknowledge that sense of yourself. You express the understanding of what it is you've been trying to say all this time. You express it by many sorts of mediums and by many sorts of actions, but the end result is one in which you make that difference within your life upon that accepting of your understanding. And then there is the fifth step, which is newer and is more focused on the emotional integration of this dialogue, of your now changed perspective, your changed values, and the emotional release of all of what has been holding you back and hindering your true sense of self. Now, with the clients that I work with, I do follow this sort of 5-step addition to the old sense of the Carl Jung's process of shadow work. But there are just a few things that I do think that need to be a little bit different. The aspects of which you accept your sense of identity is ones in which aren't just blatant acceptance of your trauma, your anxiety, depression. It's one in which you do not allow that sort of label, that sort of archetype to frame your mind. It's one in which I think you need to have a sense of established relation with. Like, I think that you need to have a sort of familiarity with what you're going through. I think that the moment that you just accept any quasi thought you had about a specific situation and which you have established a sense of emotional attachment to, can be something that's, now like I said, the way in which you go about these 5 steps are ones in which the first one is wildly important and the last one are wildly important. The middle 3 are entirely individualistic on your own experiences or on the experiences of the person you're working with. It is individualistic. It is personal. So the way you go about it can be done through, like I said, many mediums. Those of which including a lot of mindfulness techniques, meditations, somatic therapies, talk therapies, like I said, theater therapy, EMDR. There is certain sorts of yoga, CBT therapy, or cognitive behavioral therapy, even working out or going on a long hike. The aspects in which you are expressing your emotions, the emotional baggage, the way in which you are validating your sense of self as well as the society around you in those moments in which your shadow was created, as well as the recalibration of your value systems that were created then, and then the new value systems that you are establishing now, is ones in which you need to explore and understand with who it is you are going through this shadow work with, or just need to understand within yourself. Like I said, the mediums vary, but the act of figuring out what it is that you've been doing and what has been holding you back, and the aspect of integration needs to be established, needs to be understood. Without the integration, if you just have the value system, if you just have, an emotional release, without having each aspect kind of brought together and then allowed to be planted within the psyche and then grown within your everyday life and activities afterwards, is one in which you will only find yourself in that same cycle again, which does lead to that process, which some people say in the spiritual community is a sense of accepting your own demons and then just living the life in which kind of keeps you bound to them, only accepting them blatantly. The acts in which you are integrating them and making that difference is the ones in which you are healing. The act of integration is what allows you to carry on the acts in which you are then making that difference for your highest self, for the betterment of your current self. So I hope this helps, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. If you'd like to, I think that I'm going to be making a video on that sort of positive focus comparative to the shadow work, and trying to explain what it is that you can do to really make those actions to find that balanced middle, and understanding what each action and what each belief system has in correlation to one another, so that that balance can be understood and can be acted on wisely. So, like I said, I hope to see you guys in the next one. Deuces.